be this tendency to do this, because the mind is more subtle than the breath. So often when people begin this practice, they're really doing this, and that of course agitates the mind. And so after meditation, we're sort of like this. So again, it's very important here when we start this practice, any shamatha practice, is just notice, is the body completely relaxed? Is the mind completely relaxed? If it's not, we need to keep releasing that. And if we can't, then, as I suggested, I think in the earlier meditation, is then go back into the body, into the rhythm of the breath, and just really work on that, relaxing, relaxing, relaxing. And then a little bit in the corner of the mind, notice your thoughts and emotions. So again, relaxation, because this practice, again, if we're not very relaxed, will get you very worked up because we're doing this. So that's one point. Another point, of course, is if we're very relaxed and we're really going into this practice and we're not doing this anymore, then lots of stuff can come up as well. But as long as we don't entertain it, then it's not a problem. So, but mainly, the main reason initially why people get not relaxed afterwards is because we're like this in the practice. We're really like intensely trying to focus. And then we get really exhausted and very agitated. So again, just really relax, relax, relax. And what I would recommend then is go into the body, really anchor yourself in the rhythm of the breath, and then just a little bit in the corner of your mind, just notice your thoughts and emotions, but mainly just resting in the rhythm of the breath. So start there.
With eyes closed or open?
With eye open.
If the eyes open, it's make me...
Yeah, that's what's making the agitation, I think, lots of the agitation.
Right, so again here, it's not ideal environment for eyes open because there's a lot of movement, light and so forth.
I also know it from personal...
just to open the eyes.
Right, so what I would recommend is when you go home, if this is the case, meditate with a blank wall and dark. A dark room. If you can't find a dark room, what can be helpful, and I use this as well, is like a sleeping mask, and you can buy ones that are like contoured, which means you can actually, because most of them push up against your eyes, but there are ones that are contoured, which means you can have your eyes open and it'd be completely dark. So that's good. It's just a sleeping mask.
No, for me, it's the muscle to open the eyes make me tired.
You get tired during the day having your eyes open?
All the time, yes.
All the time?
Because of this, yeah, I have irritation in my eyes.
Oh, in general?
Yes.
Then have them slightly open. It's okay.
What do you mean when you say to observe? To observe when you meditate.
To observe means just to look at it, not to get caught up in it.
To observe.
So if I say observe,
something bad comes.
just observe
bad.
it. Just look at it.
Look at it and to call it, to name it.
No, only if you're getting caught up in it. You don't. I mean, labeling is only something you would introduce if you're getting caught up in it. It could be helpful. You don't have to label it. Just look at it. Look.
To watch.
Watch. That's it.
To watch it.
Watch it. That's it.
I was wondering about how interpretation relates to emotions and whether interpretation is considered in Buddhism a conceptual faculty. So let's say...
To interpret.
Yeah. Like
Sure.
For example, one of the things I liked about Buddhism is let's say I have a very bad neighbor. Once a Buddhist tells me, well, he's your teacher, then it changes my whole attitude. I'm like, okay, well,
Sure.
you can go on teaching me. And that little interpretation that was offered to me is like a magic shift in my outlook.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to see a little bit on day 9 when we go into the Vipassana, is that there is no fixed reality out there. The only reality that exists is the one that's in our conceptual mind. And depending on how our conceptual mind creates that reality, our perspective will be very, very different, no? So exactly this point. And so there are many useful and creative ways of constructing our world of experience, and this is one of them.
But how do they? Is there a name for this interpretive quality? I don't know. Just wondering.
I'm not sure.
You're engaged in interpreting, like actions, events.
But it's more than interpreting. You are creating.
It's more than interpreting.
Yeah, there's not some sort of fixed thing there that you're interpreting in a certain way. You are creating. You are creating the teacher. You are creating the bad neighbour. It's not like there's a bad neighbour there that you're interpreting as a teacher. Otherwise you'd be fooling yourself.
No, I'm interpreting a teacher when the Buddhist messages, well, he's giving you some challenge to
Correct.
get more patient.
So that's...
then I view him as a teacher, my anger subsides.
Correct. So is
but
he...
It's all like interpretive.
Right, but the question is that person a bad neighbour or are they a teacher?
Objectively, they're a bad neighbour.
No, objectively... no. Objectively, they're neither a teacher nor a bad person. Objectively, there is no person. You create them. And so it depends on how we do that creating that will determine our experience. And so Buddhism offers some more helpful ways of creating. And of course, we're not talking about hallucinating. We're not talking about making up things. I mean, this is reality. But anyway, day 9 we'll look at more of that. Last question, then we'll go back to the practice.
Is there a way that you can actively increase clarity, or is it something that just comes from passive practice?
Passive practice. So the question is there some way of actively increasing clarity? Clarity, of course, comes through practice. It's not like you can take a magic pill and more clarity. So it really, I mean, of course, you know, not get enough sleep and, you know, all the short sessions. But in terms of coffee. But in terms of improving clarity, it really comes from this practice that just continually focusing and if it's dull, sharpening, and it will come.
And will that lead? Because I had the reverse reaction. I felt, for the first time, I've actually felt joyful after this practice.
Sure.
But I'd like to understand more
Sure.
of what's coming up.
Sure, good.
It's-
Yeah, and this will come. This will come. There's two things here in terms of clarity. There is what's called qualitative clarity and temporal clarity.
Coffee is temporal.
Qualitative clarity is this threshold.
מה זה threshold?
Now we only really notice things up here. We don't notice things down here. And as we improve our clarity, that goes down, which means we'll start to pick up more subtle things and they'll become more clear. But we can also talk about temporal clarity. And temporal clarity is that now, for us to notice something, it has to appear for a certain amount of time. Usually it's so many 100 milliseconds. After it's appeared for a certain 100 milliseconds, we go, oh, there's something there. If, in this practice, what you'll find is that the amount of time necessary for something to appear before we notice it becomes much less. And they've done experiments with this with meditators. You know, they flash those subliminal messages, you know, like visual, and they only have them flashing for a certain amount of time, and normal people don't see them, but meditators can see them because their clarity's improved. So not only will we pick up more and more subtle, but shorter events as well. But that just comes through practice.
So just keep sitting.
Keep sitting, keep practicing. Okay. Quick question, then we go to the practice.
So if we're at the point of like thought it out, thought out, and then there's lots of quiet. And it's not because we're agitated, or it's just because there's quiet. So, and then longer periods of quiet. Then what? What
Right,
do you
yeah.
mean?
So the question is, we're watching thoughts and they're going, and then more and more we're getting periods of quiet, longer and longer periods of quiet. What to do? Very good. And we're going to look at that. We're going to look at that this evening a little bit. Yeah, we're going to look at that actually after dinner. Is the stages of progress in this practice. And what to do there, of course, is when there is that period of quiet, is just observe that stillness. Observe that stillness. But more I'm going to say after dinner. Okay. So back to the practice. Just one comment and then we'll go straight to the practice. When we're observing these mental events, some of the mental events are sort of more objective in nature, like things like thoughts, images, memories are more sort of objective in nature. Whereas some mental events, like emotions, moods, desires, are more subjective in nature. And sometimes because they're more subjective in nature, they're sort of closer to us, they're harder to see, and we don't notice them. And so what I'd like to do in this meditation now is mainly focus on those. Mainly focus on the more subjective mental events. So just, for example, noticing what is the current state of your mind? Are there any emotions arising, any irritation, any mental afflictions, any reactions? Really mainly focus on that, because often we miss that because we're sort of looking there and it's easy to see an image, a memory, a thought, but these ones are sort of more close to us. It's harder to notice. So we're going to mainly focus on those in this session. Okay? So let's do that practice. You can switch this light off if you want. That's okay. Good. Good. Excellent.
What are they pouring? That's it.
Setting the body into a state of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance. And relaxing more deeply with each out-breath. and allowing the mind to come to rest in the present moment. Simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. And with the eyes at least partially open, resting your gaze in the space in front of you. And now bring your attention to your own mind and observe your own mind and whatever is arising in the space of the mind. Simply be like an impartial observer or witness, observing thoughts and other mental events as they arise and pass. And in this particular practice, placing particular emphasis on observing the more subjective mental events. Things like emotions, moods, desires, and so forth. So just observing the current state of your mind. Noticing any emotions or mental afflictions that are arising. and in particular, noticing any reactions to anything pleasant or unpleasant that arises in the mind. And if you notice any build-up of agitation, tension, or you're completely lost in the practice, then go back into the body and simply focus on the rhythm of the breath. Have that as your main focus on the basis of relaxation. And then just a little bit in the corner of your mind, observe any emotions or mental afflictions.